They called me reckless. Maybe they were right. But there's something about forgotten places. The rot, the silence, the whispers trapped in walls that always called to me. I've walked through crumbling theaters, collapsed farmhouses, even a sunken train station once. But none of them haunted my thoughts like Hollow View Asylum. It loomed on the edge of town like a fossil of madness. 50 years abandoned, buried beneath layers of ivy and rumor. Local kids made it into a legend. They dared each other to break in, but no one stayed longer than a few minutes. They spoke of screams that weren't their own, of cold hands brushing against necks, of a room at the far end of Ward B with a door that never should have opened. And yet, sometimes did. For years, I laughed it off. Just another boarded-up relic with a spooky backstory. But last week, one of my friends, Jake, bailed halfway through the front gate. Said he heard someone whisper his name before he even touched the doorknob. He wouldn't talk about it after. That made me curious. Tonight, I came alone. I didn't tell anyone. No live stream, no GoPro, no backup plan. Just me, my flashlight, and a growing sense of unease. The front gates were rusted open, twisted metal barely clinging to their hinges. I slipped through easily enough, crunching over broken glass and dead leaves. The asylum towered ahead, black windows like empty sockets. The air felt different here, colder, heavier, like I'd stepped underwater. Inside, the smell hit first. Damp wood, mold, something faintly metallic. I swung the flashlight's beam across the entryway. Dust danced like ash in the light. Wallpaper peeled in long curls from the walls. Doors hung crooked, some barely attached to their frames. I moved forward, boots echoing on cracked linoleum. Every step sounded too loud, too sharp, as if the building didn't want to be disturbed. I passed a rotted bench, a shattered water fountain. My beam landed on an old sign, still clinging to one corner of the wall. Main hall, wards A and B. I hesitated. This was it. The point of no return. Ward B was where the legends lived. The stories, the sobbing, the locked door. I stepped forward anyway. The hallway swallowed me. Green paint flaked off the walls like diseased skin. Ceiling tiles had collapsed in places, revealing rusted pipes above. Graffiti lined the walls, angry messages, names, strange symbols. But something about them felt layered, like they were painted over something older. The flashlight caught movement to my left and I froze, only a rat darting into a hole in the wall. I let out a breath and kept walking, heart pounding a little harder. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Soft, distant, but definitely not mine. I stopped. So did they. I took another step. Another set of footsteps echoed a beat behind. Not a trick of sound. Not my own. I wasn't alone in Hollow View Asylum. And for the first time in all my reckless exploring, I wasn't sure I wanted to know who or what had dared to join me. I'd barely taken 10 steps down the main corridor when I felt it again. That strange pressure, like the air around me was thick with breath I couldn't hear. My flashlight sliced through dust and shadow, catching glimpses of decay as I crept deeper into Hollow View Asylum. Pipes overhead groaned occasionally, but it was the silence that unnerved me most. It wasn't peaceful. It was watchful. I passed a nurse's cart tipped on its side, rusted metal wheels frozen in place. The drawers hung open, their contents long looted or scattered. One room's door was ajar, and curiosity tugged at me. I stepped inside. The walls were covered in graffiti, some angry scrawlings, others desperate confessions from other trespassers. But beneath the layers, barely visible through the faded paint and mold, were older drawings, crude, childlike ones, stick figures, rainbows, a house. But one caught my eye and chilled me to the bone. A wheelchair. It was drawn in thick black crayon, scribbled so aggressively the paper had nearly torn. A small figure sat in it, face hidden behind jagged lines. Others stood around it, nurses maybe, but they were all faceless. And above the drawing, in red, "He's still here." I backed out of the room quickly, my heart thudding louder than my steps. The hallway felt narrower now. The silence pressed against my ears like cotton. Then, just beyond the edge of my light, movement. I spun. Nothing. But I knew what I heard. It was soft, barely there, like someone crying into a pillow from 2 rooms away. A slow, broken sob that rose and fell in uneven waves. I stood still, breath held, trying to pinpoint it. The flashlight flickered. Once, then again. I smacked it with my palm. It steadied, then dimmed. "Not now," I muttered. The sobbing stopped. I turned in place, shining the beam down every stretch of hall I could see. I was alone. At least I looked alone. I pressed on, step by step, the light ahead weak and uncertain. I tried to convince myself it was just wind through the vents, maybe dripping water. Anything but the truth that gnawed at the edges of my mind. Something was here with me, and it wasn't hiding anymore. Another hallway opened to my left, long, decayed, ending in a collapsed ceiling. As I turned my light down it, I saw something move across the far end. Quick, low to the ground, my heart leapt into my throat. I stumbled backward, flashlight beam shaking wildly. I called out, voice cracking, "Hello!" No answer. But the sobbing started again, louder this time. And then the light went out. Total darkness swallowed me. I stood frozen in that endless black, ears straining. The sobbing was closer now. So close it could have been right behind me. And in that moment, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This place didn't want visitors. It wanted company. The darkness didn't last long, just enough to rattle every nerve in my body. When the flashlight flared back to life, I almost dropped it. I was still standing in that hallway, heart thundering, cold sweat trickling down my spine. But the sobbing, it had stopped. I should have turned back. Any sane person would have. But I'm not sure sanity mattered inside Hollow View. Something else had taken hold of me, a sick mix of fear, curiosity, and a compulsion I couldn't explain. The moment the light returned, my feet started moving again, like I was being led. The hall narrowed, the air colder, heavier. It smelled faintly of antiseptic and something else, like rotting flowers. I passed rusted gurneys and crumpled patient charts, the kind that used to hang at the end of hospital beds. The edges were curled, ink faded, but one still had a name I could barely read. El Marrow, room 413. Room 413. That name had always been part of the legend. The last patient, the one they said was forgotten when Hollow View shut down. Staff had fled, funding dried up, and in the chaos, someone was left behind. Some claimed the patient died alone, others that he never died at all. Either way, no one ever dared go near that room, except me. The flashlight dimmed again as I turned the corner, and there it was, at the end of a short, narrow hallway, a heavy metal door, slightly ajar. Its paint was long since peeled away, exposing rusted steel beneath. Stenciled in faded black letters above the frame, room 413. I stopped. My body was trembling. Not from cold, though it was freezing, but from something primal, a dread that gripped the back of my neck. I wanted to run, but I also needed to know. I raised the flashlight and stepped closer. My boot crunched on broken glass. My fingers brushed the door's surface. It was ice cold. I gently pushed it open. It groaned on its hinges, revealing a padded room. The walls were stained and torn, yellow foam protruding from gashes in the lining. In the center of the room sat a wheelchair, old and rusted, facing the far wall. Its wheels were caked with grime. It looked placed, not abandoned, like someone left it there and expected it to stay that way. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. I hesitated on the threshold. I could still turn around. No one would ever know. But I stepped in. The moment my foot crossed the threshold, the door behind me slammed shut. The sound was deafening. I spun, lunging back toward it, yanking the handle. It didn't move. It wouldn't even rattle. I pounded against the door. "Hey! Let me out!" Nothing. The silence returned, thicker than before. Then came the sound. Creak! The squeal of metal on tile. I turned slowly. The wheelchair was moving, its back now turned partially toward me as if it had been watching. As if something, was turning it inch by inch. I stepped backward, slamming against the door. And then I saw it. A figure in the chair, emaciated, skin stretched tight over bones. Wearing what looked like the remnants of a hospital gown, stained and threadbare. The wrists and ankles were strapped down by old, rotting leather. Its head lolled, and then snapped upright. Its eyes were white, milky, lifeless, but staring straight into mine. I couldn't scream, couldn't move. I could only watch, and wait for it to rise. I don't remember screaming, but I know my throat burned. My hands were slick with sweat as I clawed at the door handle, jerking it so hard I thought I'd tear the thing right off the frame. It didn't budge, not an inch. The silence on the other side was complete, like the building had swallowed me whole. Behind me, the room grew colder. Not just drafty old hospital cold. Deep cold. I could see my breath plume in the beam of my flashlight, which trembled violently in my hand. And then, creak. I turned. The wheelchair had shifted. No longer facing the wall, it had begun to pivot, slowly, unnaturally. No sound of feet, no hands on the wheels. Just that metal on linoleum screech, as though gravity itself had been warped by something that wanted me to watch. I fumbled for my phone, heart thundering in my ears. The screen stayed black, dead. It had been fully charged when I entered. I held down the power button, slapped the back. Nothing. The air now smelled wrong, like sour meat, mildew, and chemicals all mingled into a stench that made me gag. The padded walls seemed to bulge in places, like they were breathing, slow, rhythmic expansions beneath the torn lining. I whispered, "This isn't real." But it was. The flashlight dimmed again. I smacked it hard. It flared back, just in time to catch the full turn of the wheelchair. And the thing in it. The patient. Its skin looked like it had been stretched too thin across bone, taut, cracked, with veins like bruised wires underneath. The hospital gown was shredded and stained with dark patches I didn't want to guess at. The leather straps securing its arms and legs had decayed to ribbons. But its head was the worst. It hung limp for a moment, then snapped up, spine cracking audibly in the silent room. Milky, unseeing eyes locked onto mine, wide, fixed, empty. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The room hummed with a low vibration, like a distant generator or a swarm of insects just outside hearing range. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would burst from my chest. And then, it twitched. A spasm in its wrist. A slow flex of fingers. I took a step back. My heel hit the door. It shifted in the chair again, the leather straps falling off like they were never meant to hold anything. It stood, one joint at a time, pop, crack, pop, until the figure was upright, limbs trembling as if unused for decades. It stood facing me, swaying slightly. I whispered, "Please. I didn't mean to." Its head tilted. The light flickered. Once. Twice. I gripped the handle behind me, tried it again. Still locked. And then the thing took a step. A slow, dragging step forward. I didn't know whether to beg or scream. But I knew one thing with brutal clarity. The door wasn't going to open. And I was no longer just an explorer. I was the next patient. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The thing... No, the patient stood completely upright now. And I swear to whatever still hears prayers in this place, I heard its bones grind as it rose. Long, slow cracks that echoed like snapping branches in a dead forest. The flashlight shook in my hand, its beam jittering across the padded walls like a frantic spotlight searching for an exit that didn't exist. I had pressed myself flat against the sealed door, praying somehow it would crack open. It didn't. Of course it didn't. The patient's wrists were free now. Those rotted leather straps had disintegrated into strips dangling uselessly at its sides. Its fingers twitched in small spasms, like it hadn't used them in decades and was remembering how. I whispered, "Please, please don't." It took a step, a slow, dragging shuffle. The sound made my knees buckle. Another step. Its mouth moved now, lips cracking, the flesh around them brittle and dry. It began to whisper something, soft and disjointed. I couldn't make out the words. They slithered just beneath the range of understanding like static on an old radio. "I didn't mean to disturb anything," I said aloud, my voice trembling. "I didn't know anyone was—" It tilted its head, a grotesque sudden motion that made its vertebrae pop in a sickening sequence. Its milky eyes locked on mine. They were cloudy, lifeless, but aware. Somehow aware. "I'm sorry," I stammered. "I swear I just came here to look. Just to see. Please, please let me go." The whispering stopped. The patient's head twitched again, just slightly. Then the lights flickered. Not just my flashlight. The room itself pulsed with light, like the overhead fixtures hadn't been dead for 50 years, but were being forced back to life by something far older than electricity. They flared white for a second, casting everything in unnatural brightness. Long shadows stretched from nothing, bending the corners of the room, warping space. Then dark. Then light again. Faster now. A strobe of flickering, frantic energy. The patient moved faster. Not running, not lunging, but with purpose, with intent. I backed into the corner, the only place left to go. I crouched low, curling in on myself. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to run. The voice started again, this time louder, clearer, still unintelligible. But now it pulsed with something beneath the words. A need. I squeezed my eyes shut, covered my ears. "Stop," I begged. "Please, stop. I'll go. I'll leave. Just let me go." But I didn't move, and neither did it, because I felt it standing directly in front of me. The lights stopped flickering. Silence returned. I opened one eye, just enough to see the patient's bare feet inches from my own, skin like parchment, toenails yellowed and cracked. It crouched, slowly. Bones creaked again. Then its breath hit me, cold, damp, heavy with rot. The whisper stopped, and in that perfect, suffocating stillness, I felt something worse than fear. I felt understood. It didn't want to kill me. It wanted to keep me. The patient didn't speak again. Not with words. Not yet. But the way it looked at me, with those pale, unblinking eyes, told me everything. It didn't see a person. It saw a replacement. A stand-in for someone who never came back. I was pressed into the corner, the wall firm behind me, the scent of mildew and something older closing in like a fog. The patient had stopped moving, just stood there, as if studying me, measuring me. My flashlight trembled against the padded wall, casting flickering shadows across its grotesque, skeletal frame. Then the room shifted. Not metaphorically, physically. The padded walls pulsed, like lungs inhaling. I blinked, and suddenly I wasn't in the present anymore. A vision slammed into me like a memory I never lived. The walls changed, fresher now, the padding clean and new. The smell of bleach, fluorescent lights humming overhead. A nurse's voice echoed distantly, stern, exhausted. "He's not our responsibility anymore. No paperwork, no discharge. Just lock it and leave." The vision warped. I saw a young orderly hesitate at the door. Behind him, the same patient, alive, still restrained in the wheelchair, crying out, eyes wild with panic, voice cracking, "Don't leave me! Please, please!" And the door slammed shut. I gasped. The breath ripped from my lungs as the present snapped back into place. The rotted room, the dim light, the silent standing figure. It hadn't moved, but something around it had. The furniture, the wheelchair, the rusted bed frame near the wall began to shift. Not with force, but as though responding to the thing's presence, as though the room itself was bending to its will. A loud bang startled me. The metal stool by the far corner flew across the room and struck the wall just feet from me, denting the padding. I screamed, ducking down, arms over my head. "Stop! I'm not them! I'm not the one who left you!" And then, another vision. I saw him again. The patient. Not the thing in front of me, but the man he used to be. Sitting in that same wheelchair, days passing with no food, no water, screaming until his voice went raw, eyes red, hands bloodied from clawing at the door. I felt what he felt. The hunger, the betrayal, the loneliness, the silence that swallowed him whole. My body shook. I sobbed without meaning to. My hands gripped the filthy floor like I could keep from slipping out of time. "You were forgotten," I whispered. "You were left behind, I know. I see it now." The patient's head tilted. Slowly, curiously. The walls began to tremble. Not violently, not like before, but rhythmically, almost. Mournfully. As if the building itself remembered too. The patient took one step closer, then another. My chest was heaving, but I didn't move this time. I didn't scream. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "You didn't deserve that. No one did." The air grew dense again, and a voice, a whisper that seemed to come from the padded walls, the floor, even my own chest, rose softly. "Stay with me." Not angry, not cruel, desperate. And suddenly, I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of becoming just like him. The light went out. Not just the flickering, sputtering beam of my flashlight. Everything. The last pulse of ghostly illumination from the overhead fixtures blinked out with a quiet, hopeless sigh, leaving me in absolute darkness. I didn't breathe. I didn't dare. Because in that silence, in that void, something had changed. The air was no longer cold. It was dead. Still and thick, like the room itself had exhaled its final breath and was waiting for mine to follow. Then I felt it. Fingers. Cold, dry fingers, brushing my shoulder. I spun around, arms flailing, but struck nothing. Just stale air. My back hit the padded wall, and I slid down to the floor, curling into myself. "Please," I whispered. My voice sounded like it didn't belong in this place. Too real. Too alive. That's when I heard the voice. Not in my ears. Inside my head. Clear now. Words I could understand, finally freed from the haze of madness. "They left me. All of them. Do you know what that feels like?" I did, because I felt it all at once. Every moment he spent alone. The hunger, the thirst, the desperation. Time slipping by in slow, agonizing minutes. Screaming until there was no voice left. Banging on the door with frail fists. The quiet, maddening realization that no one was coming. I begged them. Another vision. Him, sitting in the corner, whispering to the walls, trying to remember his name, crying until the tears stopped coming, talking to the rats, naming the mold. And now, you'll understand. I shook my head violently. "I do understand," I gasped. "I do, and I'll tell someone. I swear it. I'll tell them what happened to you. I'll tell everyone." Silence. For a heartbeat, I thought it worked. That maybe I'd reached something buried in him, a shred of what used to be human. Then the voice came again, closer, lower, heavier. "But they won't believe you." I tried to speak, to argue, but the words caught in my throat. The floor beneath me vibrated softly. The air hummed with pressure. I felt the hand again, this time gripping my wrist. Not tight, not violent, but enough to hold me. I screamed. I don't even know if the sound left my lips or just echoed in my mind. The grip tightened. I thrashed, kicking, clawing at the air. "Let me go!" The whisper came again, right at my ear now, breath colder than death. "Stay with me." Everything fell away. My thoughts, my panic, the room itself, and then nothing. Just silence. Hollow View Asylum remained dark. Room 413 stayed locked. And somewhere, in that forgotten padded cell, a new voice began to whisper. Not alone anymore.